Yesterday we were discussing how after the Buddha has given this meditation lesson to ascetic Subhadda, he went to one place alone in seclusion, practiced walking meditation, and progressing along the path of insight knowledge, he attained to the arahantship, became arahant with Paṇḍitā. That means with four discriminations. That means that he did not attain ordinary arahantship. He did it in a distinguished manner with distinction by way of this Paṇḍitā, the four discriminations. He was distinguished arahant, not ordinary arahant. And as for the time taken for him to become an arahant, as is said in this Nachita Seva, not long after means soon, as is given in this Pali Canon. And how long will it be? Maybe in a matter of about 1 hour. So, after that, ascetic Subhadda approached the Buddha, paid obeisance, bowed down, and sat on one side. And today we shall continue with that subject. And this is how the ascetic Subhadda practiced up to the attainment of the arahantship, as is given by the commentarians. At this point, the story of Subhadda would be complete. However, in order to gladden all disciples or beings who are listening to the Dhamma, the rendering should be given as regards this expression, achiru sampanno, and not long after ordination. So by doing this, by rendering this sentence, we can gladden ourselves by knowing the method of practice of the old-timers in the old days, how they undertook the practice. It is said, as is said, Ayasama Subhadda, Ashirupa Sampanno. As for Ayasama Subhadda, Elder Subhadda, not long after ordination, that means very soon after that. Eko, alone in seclusion. Alone, one has got to practice alone, free from companions, so that one can practice with kaya viveka, bodily seclusion. We don't need any companions, worldly companions, otherwise we will be indulging in conversations. So it will disrupt the practice. All we need is a Kalyana Mitta, good companion, good teachers, who will give guidance, both from the theoretical and practical aspects. So one has got to stay alone, free of this companion, except Kalyana Mitta, so that one can practice in peace. And Vupakata, go into seclusion in a place of the Mala garden belonging to the Mala princess, where there are no Sangha or no persons. So, ascetic Subhadda approached that place. So, as regards Upakata, it needs some explanation, in that one has got to be free from two kinds of karma, sensualities, namely Vatu karma, Kilesa karma, objective sensuality or objective defilement, and Kilesa karma, subjective defilement or subjective sensuality. So one should be aloof or alienated from these two kinds of sensualities, physically and mentally. One should be aloof from desirable objects, which is Vatu karma, objects of senses, desirable sense objects, and Kilesa karma is wanting, craving for sensual objects such as visible object, sound, desirable sound, appealing objects, good taste, good touch, and so on. All these things come under Kilesa karma. So one should be alienated or aloof from these objective sensualities, objects of senses. And also one should be separated from Kilesa karma. That means one should not have desire for these desirable objects. So one should be alienated physically and mentally, both by body and mind. One should be alienated by way of physical body and also alienated mentally. As though these objects of senses are not your concern. Nothing, they don't belong to you. You have nothing to do with them. So, if of course one is seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, unavoidably, what are we going to do? This will be discussed later on. So, as for the practicing yogi, they are bound to see or hear good, bad, neutral things, unavoidably. But if they sense these things unavoidably, what are we going to do? This will be discussed at a later time. So what to do about these sense objects? Not to pay attention to these sensuous objects, sensual pleasures. As here this word is given, apamato, not to forget, but to be diligent, not to be negligent, not to lose your mindfulness, not to be alienated from sati, mindfulness, not to do it lightly, in a slight manner, but instead one should be mindful all the time. And one should pay attention as unavoidable or compulsory duty. One must consider this as a compulsory duty. And not to pay attention and exert energy. At the same time, try to train your mind on objects so that it is steadfastly connected with the object of attention. Doing it respectfully, carefully, attentively, so that the mindfulness is continuous, the preceding is continuous with the succeeding, so that there is no gap in an uninterrupted flow, and taking this as all important to gain insight. That must be the sole objective. Practice should possess perseverance, the power of perseverance, such as apamada. Then only you will not be paying attention to the sense objects. Your mind will not go there. Your body also will not go there, neither will the mind be. So that you are physically and mentally aloof from these sense objects. You are separated, yourself to be separated from these objects. So, of course, for some people, even if they are physically aloof from these sense objects, for those who are prone to imaginations and fantasies, they will not be able to possess this citta viveka. They will not be secluded mentally. So, even if they are given this lessons, they will not be able to, because they have been thinking. The mind is indulging in it, freewheeling. So, if one is able to guard oneself with vigilant mindfulness of every arising, then one will be one will possess citta viveka, the mental seclusion. So one should be mindful all the time, and one should also be exerted to be mindful. As for ordinary people, they are not mindful all the time. They are freewheeling, indulging in sense pleasures, and the serious indulgence is indulgence in immoral deeds, treachery. That is a serious one. That is a very serious form of negligence. And then, if one is indulging in sense, if one indulges in immoral deeds, this is a serious negligence. If one indulges in sensual pleasures, this is the medium form of indulgence, medium form of negligence. And as for a refined form of, there is another form of negligence, subtle or refined form of negligence. That is, while you are practicing the Dhamma meditation, you are not doing respectfully and carefully. In fact, you are practicing like a stop and go, like a chameleon. Sometimes practicing, sometimes not practicing, on and off. Such is refined form of or subtle form of negligence. So as not to even allow this subtle negligence to enter your stream of consciousness, you should be able to exert your mindfulness. As for Subhadda, it is said that he was not separated from mindfulness. He was not losing his mindfulness. He was always sustaining his mindfulness. And when the Buddha has given him the meditation lesson, he was all the time mindful, such as given by the Anapana, mindful of every arising object. Sati is always there. So that Subhadda was free from both virtue karma, objective defilement or sensuality, and kilesa karma, the subjective sensuality or defilement. So, because he was free from these impurities, his mind is very clear and still and concentrated. And in order to do that, one exerts the practice.
So the Anapana so the Buddha.
Since Subhadda has a background paramis, perfection, spiritual perfections, he was able to practice his mindfulness, as is given by this maxim. Being mindful, one does not allow kilesas. Being unmindful, one is allowing kilesas. So while he was doing this, understanding this maxim, while he was practicing this walking meditation, he was noting every arising object, namely lifting, moving and placing, not to miss these objects. And also, while walking, if he sees something, he would note seeing. And when he hears something, he would note as hearing. And when he has thoughts, he would note as thinking. And if some sensations arise in his body, he would note as such. Whatever arises obviously will be noted both in the body and the mind. In this way, he was not negligent. Instead, he was diligent and heedful, such as apamata, atmato. This quality of atapi, ardent energy, exertion of energy, ardent energy, in order to dry out these kilesas, impurities, one has got to exert this, what is known as luna vriya, ardent energy. If one is not mindful, if one loses mindfulness, then if one will not be able to control one's faculties, by which one will be indulging in these objects. That is, one will be desiring or not wanting, desiring the desirable objects, wanting the desirable objects, and disliking the undesirable things. And also not knowing the truth of the objects, of the obvious objects, one may become dim and deluded. Moha will arise. Such are the defilements, impurities. So this the ardent energy is exerted both mentally and physically. Physically to exert lifting, moving and placing. Every lifting, moving, placing involves kayika virya, the physical energy, in order to cause every lifting, moving and placing. Of course, the mental energy also involved in this case. In order to arouse or to happen lifting, one lifting in stages, one has got to apply the kayika virya, the physical energy. And also, when lifting, moving and placing take place in stages, one has got to note and know, such as cetasika virya, the mental energy. So 2 stages of energy are involved. So this lifting, moving and placing comes in stages. In order to know that, one has got to apply ardent energy, exert ardent energy, in order to note and know, to be aware of that. Like the flow of electricity, it has to be continuous. Both the kayika virya and cetasika virya, both mental energy and physical energy. And one has got to be courageous in one's practice. And these qualities are very crucial for the Vipassana practitioners. Because of the constant application of energy, kilesas are not accepted. By not accepting, they are said to be abandoned. And there will be no more impurities in the mind. So there will be no wrong thoughts such as kama vidika, thoughts of sensual pleasures, nor kilesa kama, subjective sensualities, and other impurities. So the reason is he was applying this ardent energy to dry up the impurities. How nice it is. Again, it is said here, this Paṇḍitā, with intent upon realizing Nibbana, one should give priority to realize the peace of Nibbana. That should be the prime motive for those who are practicing in order to extinguish or overcome kilesas. One must renounce one's body, one's aggregate, physical aggregate, without regard for one body and life, at the risk of one body and life. If one is regarding one's body and afraid of death, then there will be no risk. One will not be able to risk. And there will be no courage, no courageous practice. Only when one can practice at the risk of one's body and life, one will be courageous in following, walking the path leading to the goal for the security of one's life. One should be able to practice without regard for one body and life, which is very important. One must be courageous like this. So this courage at the risk of body and life is very important in the practice, so that one can progress along a path inside knowledge and realize the ultimate solution in this very life. So if one is able to stay alone, practice alone and in seclusion, one can realize the ultimate salvation. So if one is able to live in this way, that is alone in seclusion, practice with ardent energy and with mind intent towards Nibbana, then one is bound to realize the fruit of arahantship, the highest goal of that holy life, for the sake of which cleansed men, cleansed women go from home to homelessness. And it's said here that Kina Sati, rebirth was gone, there was no more becoming, because Vusitam Brahmacharyam, the holy life had been lived. As for Putujanas, ordinary beings, and those are training Sekha individuals, because they had not become Arahants, their holy life had not been lived as yet. Their rebirth was not gone as yet. And this it is said here again, Katam Karaniyam. Done was what needed to be done, or what was to be done. So that means one has, Subhadda had done these four things, four noble truths. That is knowing, abandoning, realizing and developing. Knowing the truth of suffering, dukkha sajja. Abandoning the truth of the origin, samudaya sajja. Realizing the truth of extinction, nirodha sajja. And developing the truth of the path, megha sajja. So he had completed this, hence this expression, katam karaniyam. Done was what was to be done. And there was no more to be done. As for Putujanas, done means, at this point, Charu says that there are much to talk about this doing things, Kesa Jnana and Kata Jnana, but at this point it's going to take hours, 1 hour, if one has to deal with this in detail. But you can say that what needs to be done by the yogis have been done, completed. And there was no more to be done for Subhadda. As for Putujanas and Sekhas on training, they have not completed, they have to do again. For them, there was no such thing as no more to be done. They have some more to be done. As for Subhadda, he was able to reflect upon his what he has completed, and he understood well that there was no more to be done. Then it winds up like this: Ayasama Subhadda Arahatam Inyataro Ahosi. Subhadda finally became one of the Arahants. That means he was one in the list of Arahants. As for those with background of spiritual perfections, for them it was very, very quick, very fast. They didn't take long. And as for others, they have to practice at the risk of one's body and life. They have to take a lot of time in order to realize this path, and even at the risk of one's life. So this is how Subhadda became arahant after taking a meditation lesson and undertaking the practice of meditation as given by the Buddha. And such has been expressed or mentioned in the Pali Canon, recorded in the Sangha conference. So one has got to be very careful about that. One should take note of that. The Buddha has laid down this principle that where there is no hateful path, there cannot be anyone who overcomes kilesa. And where there is the hateful path, there can be those who overcomes kilesa, that is samanas. And finally, it's that only in his dispensation there is the practice of the eightfold path, and there are the samanas who overcome kilesas. So these principles are very important in that only where there is this eightfold path, there are these samana who extinguish kilesas, samana who possess true knowledge, and there are also the ariyas, the noble ones, noble individuals. This is quite satisfactory. On principle, this is also a Dhamma principle. And Subhadda was very much convinced and satisfied with the Dhamma principle laid down by the Buddha. Hence, he took up his ordination and the order and practiced this eightfold path as given by the Buddha. And when he undertook the practice, it was not a sitting meditation, but a walking meditation. If based on the general knowledge gained from learning, studies, one can reflect or use one intellect, one thinks that one can practice eightfold path with intellect and can accomplish insight, then one need not even do this sitting meditation. So it is something for us to think about for those people nowadays who are prone to intellectualization, conceptualization, such as thinking about the pros and cons of any undertaking, such as questioning why is it, how is it, and so on. If by just intellectualizing or conceptualizing, if one can complete the task of the practice of eightfold path, there will be no need for doing meditation. And if also, as some people think, that by keeping the mind at rest, that means one need not exert one's mind. Instead, just keep the mind at rest. By keeping the mind at rest, one can accomplish the purpose of practicing eightfold path. Then there will be no need for Subhadda to do walking meditation. So for Subhadda, he had to undergo this intensive practice, as is given by this expression atapi, so that the noting mind is continuous. As also is given by this expression we have already discussed, ego upakato, apamato atapi, peitato, means he has to undergo very intensive practice of, in this case, walking meditation, in order to be progressive in his insight, so that he could progress along the path. So it is quite obvious that the practice was intensive, not in the form of just spaced out thinking, or imagining, or fantasizing, thinking about this, thinking about that, and which are the practices of some of the people who are prone to fantasies, imaginative people. If only one can accomplish the spiritual task by just thinking with intellect, then one need not come all the way from those countries to this place. So as much as we have just said by just listening and reflecting or intellectualizing, one cannot realize Nibbana, so too with the practice of this weak form of middle way, so like a weakling, sickly, limping, like a limping or like a broken leg, the crab with a broken leg. If one practices like this kind of middle way, it's sure that one cannot accomplish the purpose. One can, by any means, realize the path. So by just keeping the mind at rest, as some people want to say, or don't do anything, why take the trouble of exerting? Keep the mind at rest, don't do anything, and just sit down. By just sitting down and keeping the mind at rest, one cannot accomplish the task of practicing the noble path of reconstitutions. It's quite obvious. And some people take meditation as just going alone, sitting in some under a tree or some quiet place and thinking. Yeah, they think this is meditation. So then this vupakado, this will not be needed. As a matter of fact, one has got to practice diligently, heedfully, without negligence, diligently. At the risk of body and life, must have courageous energy, heroic energy, in order to undertake the practice. If one does not do anything, then one will not accomplish the task of Eightfold Path. And there will be no samanas who possess true knowledge, no ariyas, the noble ones, attained ones. So as for Subhadda, he has to undertake this practice. In fact, he did walking meditation diligently, heedfully, energetically, so that he was able to progress along the path until he realizes the final path, consciousness, arahantship. So, by this example, this is a definite, precise, something to be, it is precise, something to be remembered precisely, that in accordance with the spirit of mindfulness, satipatthana, one has got to undertake the practice of one of these objects of the body, the object of the mind, feeling, any good, bad or neutral feeling, or general Dhamma objects. Only when one is able to practice this insight in this way, will one be able to realize the path and fruition knowledge of the Noble One and see Nibbana. Then only there will be this samana who possesses true knowledge, samana who extinguish kilesas, and the true ariyas, noble ones. As for Elder Subhadda, after attaining arahantship, seeing Nibbana, he came to the Buddha and respectfully paid obeisance, bowed down, sat on one side. And in this way, Elder Subhadda became the last disciple, arahant disciple, during the Buddha's lifetime, as is been recorded by the Sangha conference. And in this way also, Buddha also has accomplished his purpose. As much as Buddha and Elder Subhadda had completed their task, so too our task of this discourse, namely the right path leading to the right destination. And also the right path leading to the right destination. And also the right path leading to the right destination.